Thank you. Thank you, Nziki. Much appreciated. Good day. I often say good evening, but this is not FAD, right? I'd like to just share a couple of things. One of the things that you've got to constantly consider is that as long as you're running a business, you're pitching. And if you are not pitching, it means you're not selling. If you're not selling, you're not in business. And I think I love what was mentioned around the use of social media. It creates a lot of touch points to make things a lot easier for us. In fact, there's so many templates that you can find, whether you're doing an elevator pitch or you're doing a proper pitch where, you might have watched shows like Dragon's Den out there where you're pitching to investors. It's just about understanding what do you need to put, what are the ingredients that you need within your pitch. I'm gonna talk you through 7 of them, right? And just quickly for you to highlight what they are is the most important thing is your problem statement. What problem are you solving? Absolutely critical. If people do not understand what problem you're solving for, then they can't assist you. The rest of your pitch is going to just go downhill, right? And then, what is your business, right? And this speaks more to the solution statement. And what have you solved, right? And then, what traction do you have in the marketplace? As in, what have you done so far, right? And what follows that is, how big is the market? And who's on your team? And what are you asking for? So that was me just giving you a quick high-level summary of what we're going to be talking ourselves through, right? Now, let's just talk about the introduction. You've got to have for you to have a good pitch, it's got to it's got to flow seamlessly. And something that I want to stress around this is we often want to focus on perfection as entrepreneurs. We often want to say things perfectly, but it's okay. It's okay to be vulnerable in the process. Just know and understand your business. If you don't understand it, it becomes a bigger challenge. So study through the thing that you're doing and make sure that you have a good understanding of the market that you're serving and what problem you're trying to solve for. And make sure that it's clear and concise, and then I'll take you through some of these things, right? First thing is, as we mentioned before, your problem statement. In your problem statement, a good pitch starts by illustrating the problem that your business is solving for. Understandably, most people would want to understand, they would want to talk about themselves first and introduce themselves and stuff. But quite often, if you try and surprise your audience by giving them the facts around your problem statement, you've garnered their interest. Now you have their attention, and now they want to know more, right? Let me give you an example. So this is an example of a startup pitch, right? Do you know that 80% of South Africans spend 3 to 5% a day traveling to work? And of that 80%, only 20% manage to have a productive day. The money lost from this time wasted averages around R500,000 per employee per month. That's a problem statement that you've put out there. You are displaying and understanding through your research of what the problem is in the marketplace and how, and then you're going to come through and try and present a solution. So a critical thing here is for you to be able to, is for you to be sharing facts, numbers. People love numbers. And once you're giving them clarity around that, one of the things that I often do in my own pitches when we are trying to solicit funding for entrepreneurs, because we do a lot of crowdfunding, is give a very clear picture of what funding looks like, the funding landscape looks like in South Africa, and the problem that we're trying to solve for in that space, right? Now that you've defined a problem statement, now you can get into a business introduction, right? Now that you've led with a strong problem statement, the audience will want to know how this relates to what you do. This is where you introduce yourself and your business, as well as state how the product or service you provide solves the problem you've identified. So you're giving them a confidence, you're making sure that you're letting them into your world, right? Let me give you an example. My name is Lebu, and I've built a software called Remotely. This helps employees spend their working hours more productively and save money. Imagine coming up with a solution of that nature in the pandemic that we're in. A lot of us have been working from home, and a lot of our bosses would want to know, how are we spending our time at home? Are we actually working or not? So tapping into that gap solves something, right? Again, it's very important that you say enough in the most concise way. We like to say, describe your business in a tweet, and a tweet is about 140 characters. And therefore, it says, Just understand very clearly what the problem statement is, and as you give the solution around this, you must be concise. Don't say a lot. Just say enough for the audience to be hooked in, and then you take them through the next step. Now, what they want to know, since you've given them those statistics that you've given them before, is real-life application. At this point, your audience should want to know more about what your business does, right? You now have the opportunity to demonstrate your business's solution, so you might want to go into a bit more detail at this stage, right? Let me give you an example again. Remotely works by being installed into an employee's PC and tracks the tasks that they do during working hours. It automatically clocks when they start and when they finish a task, right? And as well as when they are away from their PC. Here you're giving a very detailed and specific solution to the problem that you've identified. You are not trying to be generic, you're not trying to be all things, you are showing the solution very clearly. Whether you're pitching to investors or you're pitching to a client, they understand exactly what problem you're solving at this stage. You can also speak on your competitive advantage, as well as mention the benefits of your product or service. Let me give you an example here again. With the use of the software, employees save a minimum of 3 hours a day, which amounts to a saving for the employer of about 300,000 Rand a month. You are just getting into the numbers, you're showing knowledge, you're showing expertise in the space and saying, this is the homework I've done, this is what I understand about this problem, and this is how I intend on solving it for you, right? You must also remember that this section is going to be a bit more detailed, because come question time, investors or buyers might be going back and asking you some questions. So try and circumvent that by giving them a bit more detail at this stage. You don't have to say a lot again, but just make sure that you've covered enough for them to have a proper understanding of how the real life application works, right? And then you've got to show proof of what you've done. This is called traction. After you've talked about how great your product or service is, the audience will want to see this in the numbers that you've achieved. It's always the case. People want proof, right? This is your chance to turn some of those skeptics into believers, or truly convert those who are interested. Let me give you an example again at this stage, right? Our software is currently being used by 3 companies for their non-front-facing personnel. And this has generated a revenue of 250,000 Rand for us for the past 12 months. You've just shown proof. It might be that you don't have any traction because it's still an idea and you're still fresh in the game. Try and find some way to prove that you have engaged customers, you have some real-life data from your side. Just doing that market research could count as part of your traction, right? Especially if you're at ideation phase. But for a lot of SMEs who are looking to get into supply chains like Saso, you must have proven something in the game by now, right? And therefore, you must just package it. Have the facts upfront so that the client can trust you at this point. Or if you're looking for investment because you're looking to grow, again, it's the same situation. You've got to make sure that you are showing traction at this stage. And the most important thing to show in this step of your business is viability, by briefly talking about how much you've done financially. Absolutely important. When we talk about our funding platform, which focuses specifically on purchase order funding, I often tell people that we've already done just over 250 million Rand in revenue in the past 4 years since we launched that business. That automatically catches your attention, and you want to know more about how do we do this and how have we done it so far. So numbers tell a story, and it is business after all. And now that you've shown your internal structure just around traction of what you've done, you've now got to show you've got to display some authority in your understanding of the market, right? This is called market size in your pitch deck. And here, once you've shown that there's a market that is interested in your product or service, you need to quantify the potential of earning in that market, right? And the critical things that are often focused on here is, do you know how big that market is? So the market is big enough, the market is seasonal or not, and there are other players in that market. These things are critical for you to be able to show an understanding that you've done some market research, you've pulled in some data from where you are searching, and it kind of gives you a very clear picture. I'm going to give you an example again, even at this stage, right? It says, for example, With the South African workforce that is comprised of just over 3,000 companies that collectively employ 1.2 million people, there is still a market worth at least 200 million rand per month to tap into, right? And then globally, that is the market worth, that market is worth a minimum of 39 billion rand a month. And given that there currently aren't any other players in the market right now, there's huge potential. You're painting a picture. You are walking your audience through a structure that says there's potential here. For an investor, they see an opportunity that if they put their money into this thing, they potentially stand to gain. So don't just throw numbers around without having an understanding for yourself as to why are you displaying those numbers, or what is the narrative you're telling? What is the story that you're trying to tell through these numbers? Sharing about market size is very important, and in this day and age, we have the internet. So we have no excuse for not being able to research and pull out data that is freely available out there. The internet has democratized a lot, especially in terms of access to information. Use it to your advantage, right? Now that you've spoken about market size and you've displayed all the other things, they always want to know who is behind this, the jockey, right? What does the team look like? Having heard all the wonderful things that your business does and they've achieved, your audience will now want to know more about your team. They'll be looking for those aha moments that answer why you are a good fit for this business. Absolutely critical. They need to know that you can actually execute on what you are talking about. You are not just pulling it out or sucking it out of your thumb, right? Let me give you an example again in terms of how you could position this in your pitch deck. Using the example of remotely, we're saying remotely is equally owned and run by my partner and I, where between the two of us, we've got a great balance of technical and business skills. With my honors degree in software business and 5 years of work experience, I bring the technical skills. My partner has an MBA and 7 years of management experience, which allows her to run the company profitably. You've got to win over your audience, whether they're investors or they are buyers. They've got to know that you can actually execute on this. And I want to give you an example again that relates to my own business, right? When I go to a multinational and we're going to provide services, they want to know that I can actually execute on the mandate or on the job without asking them to pay me early as a small business, right? Why am I annoying them? Because now they must break their own procurement processes just to cater for me. They would rather deal with another big entity. So we always display the capacity of our team, the reach in terms of how far we can go, and the fact that whether they're doing a 30-day, 60-day, or 90-day payment period, we can actually execute on that. We know how to find the money. We know how to make sure we deliver on that mandate. Very, very important. If you're a small business trying to service a corporate or a multinational or a government agency, yes, you will always fight to try and get paid early, but be able to display that you can handle that capacity. If you don't do that, you're going to experience a lot of challenges in getting the business. Remember that it is about winning over the trust of the buyer or of the investor who must give you the money. And then once you have displayed your capacity through your team, the next thing is you must be able to state your ask. I mean, that's what pitching is about at the end of the day. You're either asking for business or you're asking for funding. But before that, you had to take them through a process of making them understand your capacity and your understanding, your knowledge of the space that you are in. So the final step in the pitch process is to tell the audience what it is that you want. If you have done the past 6 steps pretty well, this will be the only thing that's missing in the puzzle of your pitch is about you now just closing it off. Let me give you an example again. Whilst we have achieved a lot in the past year together, our business now needs to grow to be able to successfully meet the growing demand of our current and new clients. There's a variety of sophisticated personnel and infrastructure that we require to scale, and as such, we are seeking 5 million rand in exchange for 20% of the business or equity, right? At this stage, there must be a give and take in your pitch. You must be able to demonstrate that what you are asking for, you can meet the investor or the buyer halfway in some form or the other. So you've shown capacity, and in your ask of what they must give you, you must be able to show that there's a value exchange. You're not just demanding or just taking from the customer or the investor. There's something that you're giving back in return, and you're confident in what you're giving. And then they're obviously going to grill you and negotiate the best rate on their side. But if you know your story, you can stick to it just in terms of what you have worked out, right? Okay. In closing, the true test of how well executed each step of the pitch process will lie in how coherent the whole pitch is. It's just about you practicing your pitch over and over. I pitch every week, by the way. And this is not just to clients, but it's also to entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs always want to know, what value do I bring to the table for them in order for them to be able to trust me. So I experience a lot of rejections along the way, and that helps me develop, right? And whenever I get rejected, I ask for feedback. In getting that feedback, I go back and I reevaluate my pitch deck and I improve it. So it's very important. You must also know your hit rate. So you're going to get rejected most of the time. Sometimes it's not about you. Sometimes it's just about like there's no fit. Whether the investor doesn't fit into your portfolio, or you don't fit into the type of investment mandate. So don't take it personally. Treat it like a game and ensure that you are just working it through in line with your end objectives. Absolutely critical, right? I'm just going to take you through a summary again of what we spoke about. First, it's the problem statement. What is the problem? In your problem statement, include stats, numbers, and anything else that would drive sentiment. This is you winning them over. So give them data. They might not be educated about your space. They might know nothing about your space, and yet you're looking for their money, and they happen to have your money. Prove it. Give them the numbers. Give them stats. Anything. Very important. And then number 2, we said, what is your business, right? Here you're introducing yourself and your business, and keep it short. Keep it short and straight to the point, so that they have a very clearly defined understanding of who you are and what you stand for. And then number 3, what have you solved? This is about you showing some proof in some sort or the other. So demonstrate your business's solution and mention competitive advantage and benefits. Like, what makes you unique in the space? It's just about you being able to demonstrate that. And then number 4 is, what traction do you have? We said mention what financial success you've achieved and in what space and time. I gave you an example about my own funding business. We've done just over 250 million rand in revenue. We've funded over 1,000 entrepreneurs, and this has happened in a period of 4 years. Proof, traction, it's there. And if they're asking, because after you've given them that, they will, when they do their due diligence, they will require their proof. Ensure that you've got data. You ensure that you can actually prove what you are talking about. So don't lie. Absolutely critical when it comes to point number 4 in showing the traction that you have in the marketplace. And number 5 is, how big is the market? Highlight the market size and market value, as well as speak of the key players that are in your market. If you're able to demonstrate this well, you're showing investors, you're showing buyers that they can trust you. I can tell you, for instance, that government is the biggest buyer of goods and services in this country. They spend over 600 billion, right? And if you are targeting a portion of that spend, then, and you're saying you can fund entrepreneurs accordingly if they're given contracts and purchase orders, then there's capacity from a funding side for opportunities to make money off that, right? Number 6 is, who's on your team? Always demonstrate capability and capacity, right? Mention the mix of key people in the business and state what related skills that they have. Don't just go in and say, or have a kumbaya. And it also just speaks to, when you go for a co-founder or business partners that you must have in your business, make sure that you are not going for people who are exactly like you. I'm a salesman, for example. The people that I have around me are technical people and operational people. So we must constantly find ourselves in that balance where you've got people that complement your skill set, and demonstrate it in your pitch. If you don't demonstrate it, you're not going to be trusted, right? And then finally, always remember that you're doing this because you have an ask. You're asking for something. So in your ask, there must be this must be related to solving your business needs for growth. You are either funding for startup capital just to start out your idea, so you must also understand what type of funding you would be looking for when it comes to that. Or you are pitching for growth, right? And you are possibly speaking to the private sector around that. You're speaking to DFIs. You're speaking to somebody who must give you money in return for something, and you must be able to demonstrate very clearly what you are willing to give back for what you are asking for. Absolutely critical. And I wanted to cover a bit around what Nsiki had asked me in the previous session around, is a business plan important at this stage? if you are looking for somebody's money, you better have a business plan. If you're starting a business and you're trying to grow it, you must start with basic tools. There's tools like the business model canvas. This is a one-page business plan. And what it, in essence, it does for you, it helps you to see visually what your business needs in 9 easy steps, right? And it's always around focusing on who the customers are, what your value propositions is, your channels, your relationships, how you're making money, what your cost base is, who are your key partners in the space that you are in, what key resources you need, and what are your key activities. All of these things, when you combine them, they're actually a business plan. And then what you're going to do, you're going to focus on each segment and unpack it, right? That's in essence, if you've done it properly, you're going to find yourself having a proper business plan. But you can't predict what's going to happen in the market. So you've done your research and you're building it the lean way by talking to customers and taking that feedback and continually improving your deck. It's almost like when you go and look for customers, you're not just going to go and do surveys. It's great for big companies because they've proven themselves in the marketplace and therefore they can outsource or allocate resources towards such. But for you who is starting out and who needs to get customers or get funding, you need to be able to prove that what you're the problem you're trying to solve for actually has customers, and there's no other way but talking to actual customers. And that process is called customer development. It starts with customer discovery. And in customer discovery, you must be focusing on interviewing them, not on sending out surveys as a small business owner. If you send out a survey, they're going to lie to you. They're not going to tell you the truth. And because you can't see it, you can't experience their emotions, you don't know whether this thing is true or not. I want to stress this enough that make sure that you are talking to those customers, you're doing those interviews, and Google it. It's a very simple process. The internet has given us a plethora of information out there. For every business that I launch, and I launch multiple businesses all the time, I make sure that I go through such processes because you'd have started with customer discovery, and then you'll get validated through that process. Once you're validated, you talk about customer creation, and eventually you get to customer building. No investor is going to give you money unless you can prove that there's demand for what you are trying to solve for out there. Whether you're going to government agencies that give out grants, they are also not going to fund you unless you have proven something. So if you just go back to the steps that we mentioned in your pitch deck, you can see that at each step, there's a step or there's a process that you have to go through. There's initially an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch might take you just about 30 seconds to a minute, and that's just about opening the door, right? It's about, and the concept is taken literally from getting into an elevator and you come across a decision maker who could make a difference to your business, right? And at that step, you give them just enough information for them to be interested, for you to have a further conversation. And if they agree, then you are going to set up a meeting and they're going to say, come and pitch your solution to us. And the 7 steps that I gave you, speak to that. And if you can prove yourself through that, the next step that they're going to be asking you for is, can we see your business plan? Can you see that at each step, there's data that goes in there? And unless you have done your business model canvas and you've built your business the lean way, how else are you able to prove this? Unless you've got funding from the 3, which is family, friends, and fools, right? You've got to be able to prove. And especially in a market like South Africa, here you can't just get funded for an idea. You must have proven something. People believe in things that are tangible that they can see. So find ways to prove that your concept works or your business works, and then it's going to be easier moving forward. Thank you.
Cool, Selebogo, thank you so much. That was very insightful. I do have a few questions for you that I think just, when people think about pitching, there's like a lot of blocks that people are kind of putting together to try to figure out where they are and what's a really good way to go. So for that entrepreneur who's like, Nyazi, man, I see this thing all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe sometimes people struggle with where they can get the data. What are some easy ways to kind of gather that proof of concept to be able to say, okay, maybe there's no research in this particular space, but I consistently kind of see these challenges all the time, and this is why this idea is valid for the market?
Most of the time, I hear entrepreneurs pitch all the time. And a lot of times, everybody thinks their business is unique or their idea is unique. Very few ideas are at that stage where we talk of an Elon Musk who can take something to the moon or whatever, right? Yeah. So there's always a competitor you can benchmark against in the marketplace. whether they're big or small, there's always data from that perspective. So go and interview your competitors. Go in there, test what their processes, behave like a customer if you have to, gather as much data from that point of view. So there's always something that you can find, whether it's on the internet or through real life proving. Yeah.
I completely agree with that. And I think don't be scared to ask your competitors and to find out what's happening in the market. I mean, I think the other thing is maybe to touch on the business plan. You know, sometimes I come across people and they're stuck. So they haven't done anything because they are fixated on creating this 30-page business plan. And I think what works really well is to have that one-page canvas and then to develop your minimum viable product and then come back and work on your business plan. Do you have tips for a person who's starting to say, you know, what's the most effective way to kind of try do that and develop their MVP before they fail on a grand scale?
Yeah, I hear you. There's no shortcuts to the process. First, you've got to start with customers. If there's no demand for the product or service that you're trying to offer, it doesn't matter how great your business plan looks. Nobody will fund it because you've got no proof that this thing is needed in the marketplace. And then just in terms of tools that you can access out there, I would like to encourage everybody to get onto the National Empowerment Fund website and search for something called NEF Business Planner. It's an automatic tool that you use there. You go and build your business plan, and you don't have to be looking for funding at that particular point from the NEF. But once you have filled in the information according to what has been asked from there, you can download it and it's editable. And then you have a tool, because a lot of people struggle with the process of where am I going to start, what am I going to do? So there's tools. And this is a government thing that is funded. We are the same people who pay tax for these tools and resources that exist out there. So go after them. And then for your business model canvas, to start out with such just Google it. There's a platform called Canvanizer for those who are tech savvy. Canvanizer is perfect because it will give you the template. It will ask you the questions that you need from there. And as you go through each step, you will realize that number one is customers. There's no way around this, right? And through the customer development process, you will understand whether you've got customers or not. And then value proposition is about who are you solving for? What is the problem that you're solving? Is it important enough? Does it have people? Are the people that you're trying to solve for interested in actually what you're doing? So you realize that with each of this process and steps, it's about iteration. You are getting feedback and you're trying to solve for it.
Cool. And I think the final question I'll ask you is, how far along should I be in my mental development idea before I test? You know, so for someone who's like, this is not feeling confident maybe, and they don't think their idea is refined enough, you know, what is that balance between ideating and testing in the market?
Test from day one. Start as is. Doesn't matter how stupid it sounds. Ask people. And there's another thing that people struggle with. Everybody wants to protect their idea. They say people are going to steal my idea. The moment you stand out and you pitch to people, people give you feedback. That is IP from other people coming into your IP. You don't count that. You don't count the fact that that feedback is improving your idea. So have an abundant mindset around this. Share your idea. People will help improve. You will actually get real customer feedback as to whether this thing is going to work or not. It saves you a lot of time and money, as opposed to trying to protect everything and building it. Like the olden day mentality was build it and they will come. It doesn't work like that. Iterate.
Completely agree with you. I think this is the point where the audience would be standing up and giving you a standing ovation. So thank you so much, Selebogo. I appreciate you sharing your insights with us and your time here today. Much appreciated. And I think that is absolute value for money. 7 steps that you can today go home, implement after this, like work on your pitch deck and go pitch to your family and friends, get some feedback, and then take it from there. Selebogo, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.